The ship was about to leave for a 100+ day cruise. I saw a lot of old people getting on with oxygen tanks. I asked him what happens if they die on board. He said it was very common for old people blow their life savings to come spend their last days on this cruise. He also said they have a fully functional morgue. Getting airlifted off a ship in a medical emergency costs a fortune. And your insurance will likely not cover it. It's the best reason for purchasing travel insurance. Travel insurance is also cheap. I think it was $20 for a week for me and my wife last time we traveled. Included like $1 million in airlifting coverage on top of other stuff. I was a musician on cruise ships for a year. As mentioned before, you're not going to get cleaners on here because their work schedule is a disturbing secret. Anyone that works below deck and not always in view of passengers usually works 70-80 hour weeks while sharing a cabin the size of a closet with 4 people. Also, crew members from India aren't allowed to get off the ship in the US during their first contract, maybe 2. Can't remember, because too many Indian cruise ship workers would get off the ship and never come back. That if you die on board at sea from something other than natural causes, heart attack, old age, your death will probably not be investigated properly. Ships need to get back to port on time to load up the next set of passengers. Sweeps details under rug. Cruise ship murder is the perfect crime. You say? If you push someone overboard and no one was around to see it, did it really happen? Just created my very first Reddit account to answer this question. I've been working on ships for almost a decade now. Engineering department. When the Ebola scare of 2014 went down, I was crewing a passenger ferry. During a safety meeting, someone asked what would happen if we got a passenger showing symptoms. We were told the ship would be quarantined until the disease had run its course. Imagine just sitting in the bay on an Ebola-ridden ship. Edit. Of course I typed my first comment. I worked on a ship for 2 summers and could answer loads of questions. But the cleaning standards are very high. There's an organization, I can't remember the name of, that visits ships randomly to check cleanliness, and if the ship doesn't meet standards they can't sail. I worked in the kids activity center, and the last day of every cruise we would do a 2-hour special clean with a certain cleaning solution and rags in literally every nook and cranny. Toys get steam cleaned. Toys with small holes in them get hand washed. Toys with lots of crevices get cleaned with Q-tips. etc. Last inspection my ship passed with like a 94% or something like that. I worked as a musician on cruise ships for a year, ending a few months ago. My main concern was how the cleaning staff are treated. As a musician, we get amazing privileges. The cleaners were doing 7-hour split shifts. So 7 hours on, 5 hours off, 7 hours on, 5 hours off. Every day. 7 days a week for up to 9 months straight. All of this for a basic wage of $500. It was appalling. I was on 6 times that amount, doing 3 hours work. On top of this, they are not allowed in guest areas without permission other than the corridor of rooms they clean. Meaning they have to wander around the dinghy crew areas every day without barely seeing sunlight. Modern day slavery. Drinks at the crew bar are insanely cheaper than at passenger bars. If I remember correctly, Carnival gave us 30% discounts at passenger bars. And it was still 5x more expensive than drinking below deck. A friend of mine spent 2 years doing cruises and said the crew bar had $1 beers. Checks out. I worked casinos on 23 ships from 89-2000. Over 400 cruises. I could write a book on what goes on. I remember a cruise ship photographer told me he was asked to go down and take photos somewhere on the lowest deck, and he said there was a foot of water down there. We continued to sail for months after that. Nothing was ever mentioned about it again. Many times I have stepped into an elevator and there were small fires in the freestanding ashtrays. Obviously you know there is plenty of alcohol gas flowing and some people can't take it. We once had a guy hang himself off the front of the ship. Very sad. I was working If I can use this word to apply to casino staff, on a ship sailing across the Baltic from Karlskrona, Sweden, to Gdansk, Poland, with mostly Swedes as passengers. As staff on this particular ship we never did a boat drill or were issued life vests. Unbelievable, I know. The Baltic is notorious for rough seas, and on one of those nights, I'm talking really bad weather, after work our neighbor, totally freaking out, knocks the door and says, "Come look at this." We had the only 2 occupied cabins on this row. 3 cabins down the porthole had blown in and water was pouring into the cabin. The ship is flying every which way and my cabin mate starts putting on all his clothes like Joey and Friends, saying, "If we're going down I'm not leaving anything." He was a bit of an idiot tbh. I had been in worse storms, Hurricane Andrew to name one, and I'm a pretty calm person, so I said we should go to the bridge and check out what's going on. There was one guy up there and he said, "This is normal. It's an old ship. Don't worry." I just went to one of the bars. In the morning the ship docked and it was trashed inside. Windows broken with stuff all over the floors. No alarm was ever sounded. We sailed that evening as usual. TLDR. You're better off not knowing. Not a cruise staff member, but people regularly die on cruise ships and there is a morgue on every ship. It's kept quiet when someone passes to not affect the other passengers. I was recently on a cruise and we had to make an emergency stop to take an old lady off. It was probably the most popular on-ship entertainment of the entire week. I think the entire ship came out to see her get carted off. I think we were all expecting to see a dead body. She was very much alive. A lot of people seemed pretty disappointed. I work in corporate for a cruise ship company. A majority of the labor workforce on these cruise ships are recruited from the Philippines, Indonesia, and India. All things being equal, a white crew member will always be paid more than an Asian, even if they have the same job title and are doing the same work. It's pretty ducked up. It's well known on Reddit that cruise ship staff routinely take part in large orgies with one another. Not sure if it's true or not, but a casino staff member told us that the poker machine payouts are set higher in the first 2 days to make you win, and thus make you want to play more. Then as the ship enters international waters they don't need to have the same regulated payout percentages and it gets lowered to like 50%, so you have a very slim chance at winning anything after the first few days. This is why gambling on poker machines is so utterly stupid. They can be programmed to deliver payouts whenever the owners want. It's not like gambling on roulette or a card game. Those are based on physical objects which can't be manipulated like a computer program can. Hell, you could program a poker machine to never pay out, but you can't stop a roulette ball from falling in slots with a particular probability. A lot of people die, depending on the line. It's not unusual for a couple a week, depending on the age of the ship. There are decent odds someone died in that room. Also, if you receive an upgrade mid-cruise, there's a reason why a room is suddenly available. Bonus from a recent voyage. Not a secret, but weird story from recently. We had a couple leave out 7 dildos on the counter with a note asking their steward would like to join the fun. The note had a yes, no, maybe checkbox. Like in 3rd grade. Ex-cruise ship, casino, employee here. Always tip your cabin steward. You never know when a fling might piss the bed in their sleep and you need a fresh mattress. Are the stewards trained to read minds? Or are they just amazing at their jobs? Do they have monitors watching the doors to see when you leave so they can clean? I was taken along on a ladies cruise by a cruise crazy family member, husband's aunt. And I'd never been on a cruise before. We stayed in the concierge level, because the one who was paying was posh. My room steward was a Filipino man and he absolutely made my stay amazing. I asked about an extra pillow one day to use as a body pillow, and he took pillows and sheets and made me this big Tootsie Roll thing for a body pillow. Every day it was rolled with a clean sheet. I loved the toiletries and used up an entire bottle of lotion every day on my sunburned body. So each day I began finding 3 bottles of lotion with the clean towels. I ordered an iced tea with 2 lemons in my room after dinner 2 nights in a row and for the remaining nights of the trip. When I came back to my cabin after dinner there was a cold iced tea. 2 lemons each time. I swear the second I left the room for meals it got cleaned or turned down or fancied up. I was a poor slob who spent a week feeling like a queen because of that guy. I asked my posh host about tipping etiquette at the end and she gave me an envelope for him. It had $400 in it. I added another $100 from my spending money. He made the trip for me. Thank you. Filipinos to a dude on my celebrity cruise in April 2013. You rock. I'm a student working side job on a cruise ships every week. When a ship makes a turnover at the port, we would come and help the crews doing luggage housekeeping jobs. Since we are only external helpers, I don't know much about what happens during the trip. But during the turnover the schedule is pretty tight. Basically you have to clean rooms, deliver luggage to 3,000 plus passengers in around 6-7 hours. Everyone is rushed and the rooms might not be cleaned well. Sometimes they don't even change the bed pillow covers. So if you are unlucky, you might get some that have been used for weeks by 10 plus people. Also they don't care about the luggage. It gets thrown pretty violently. At the end of every shift there are usually 3-4 broken wheels lying around. Small tips: check in early. Buy luggage with 4 wheels. If we can push you luggage easily, we will be more careful with it. And the later the shift gets, people will be more and more violent with the luggage since we are too tired to do it properly. Most of the crew doing the hard work are Asian. They have to work 12-13 hours a day and only get paid $5-6 per hour. I was a technician in the theater. The most disturbing thing for me is the incredibly low wages they pay some crew members, like cleaners. Some people like the bartenders make almost nothing as a base salary and depend solely on your tips. Please don't opt out of the automatic gratuity. When a cruise ship needs to go in for repairs they have a set schedule they have to meet and a ton of money to throw at it. Although they pay exorbitant amounts of money for the repairs due to the schedule, every contractor has to do a rush job, so a great many of the repairs are done shoddily and the ship has no choice but to just leave any unfinished non-critical work undone and sail away. Not ship staff, but worked in advertising for 2 different cruise lines. The dirtiest secret I know is that cruises are environmental disasters. Aside from the ecosystem damage a large ship can do in port, once a ship is in international waters normal fuel standards do not apply. So most burn the cheapest, dirtiest fuel they can to save money. It's gross, and if you care about the planet you really shouldn't take cruises. Some ports have irregular features which could damage the ship, so modern cruise ships have tiny wheels on the bottom in a few places to keep the ship from scraping the hull if it hits bottom. These tiny wheels, of course, are about the size of tractor tires. Fascinating stuff. Really. Would be even more fascinating were it true. Not disturbing in the sense you probably mean. But a friend of mine was a carpenter woodworker on a ship for a while, working on set stages, etc. While on board, even during his non-working hours, he was forced to wear a shirt or hat with the company name on it so the guests would know he was not like them and that he was the help. In my mind, disturbingly demeaning. Not a staffer but a naval architecture student. Cruise ships have a different safety standard in construction for collision since it's so unlikely. Meaning if there is a major collision it has a higher chance of sinking compared to similar sized ships, but the odds are still low to sink since ships are really well built. Edit, not lax, just different standards, just different compared to similar sized ships. My old man used to work on a large cruise ship. Keep in mind this is going back 3-4 decades ago. The most disturbing goings on he told me about was the Indians. Back then, they'd be used as cleaning staff and would be on a severely lower rates of pay than anyone else. As a result, they used to go around the crew cabins asking to clean them or any other odd jobs for cash. My old man was saying his mates would regularly have someone in to clean for $1. He was totally against it until he started chatting to one of these guys. This guy literally broke down in tears begging my old man to let him clean the cabin. Turned out all the extra cash they were earning was sent home to feed their families. What's also disturbing? He told me the passengers would never see one of the Indian staff members. They were always behind the scenes doing the work. I know back then opinions and views were different. But we're still only talking 30-40 years ago. That the banging in the walls is the guy you thought fell overboard. I thought it was that guy who riveted himself into the hull. The Count of Royal Caribbean. There's a book I'm currently reading called Cruise Confidential by Brian David Bruns. It's a pretty interesting read. Guy from Iowa follows his Romanian girlfriend into working for Carnival Cruise Lines as part of the dining room staff. Includes some of the things that others have already mentioned, but still fascinating look at the inner workings of life on board.